So in this video we're going to be learning how to display notifications properly, because at the minute we can receive them but we can't actually display them properly because a notification with a type of 1 doesn't mean anything to an end user. A receiver of 1 means nothing and a sender of 1 also means nothing. So let's get started. The first thing we're going to do is we'll actually echo out a header and we'll say notifications. So what we're going to do is we're going to say if n type equals 1, that means it's an @ mention. So we're going to say echo @ mention. We refresh, you can see it says @ mention. So we're going to say something more descriptive. So we have the user ID and we have the receiver ID. So what we want to do is get the sender's username. So we're going to create a query. We're going to say sender name equals db query select username from users where ID equals, and the ID is going to be equal to sender ID, and we're going to say sender ID in the array comes from the end variable and we want to get the sender. And then of course we'll have one item returned, so we want to access the 0th item in that array and we want to get the username column from that item. So now we have the sender name and we could say something more descriptive. We could say echo sender name mentioned you in a post. So if we refresh, we have an error. So the reason for that error is just because we called it sender ID and we called it sender in our array. So we'll just change that and refresh. Now it says Francis mentioned you in a post. We'll put a HR line there. And if I post another one, for example, I could say @Francis again. I refresh the notifications. And there we can see I've been mentioned twice in 2 posts. But we can't actually tell which post it was because our notifications table isn't storing that. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to our table, we're going to create a new row called extra. It's going to be text, because we could create a row called post ID, but that would mean all notifications would have to be about posts. But we could create other notifications for other things this way, because we could store something generic like JSON, for example, and that would mean all of our notifications can fit in this table and follow that same structure. We'll let extra be null if it wants to be null, because not every notification might have extra data associated with it. So what we'll do back in our code is instead of saying the notification equals 1, and what we'll do is store an array. And the array, the first item in the array is going to be the type, and that's going to be equal to 1. The next one is going to be extra, which is going to be extra, and it's going to be equal to a string, which is JSON. So the JSON string, and we'll use single quotes actually, the JSON string is going to say post body, and that's going to be equal to text. And because we have exploded text, we want to implode text. So we'll say implode text on spaces. So before we can run it, we have to scroll up and we have to modify some stuff. So getting the ID from the key should still work, but getting type won't work. So we want to say n and we want to say type to get the type. And then we want to append on extras as well. So we'll say extra. And then because we're accessing an associative array rather than just storing the value, we have to say extra. And then we want to just append on the n and then the extra item in that associative array. So we'll copy and paste this and just paste it below because we want to use it for our posting images as well. We'll run this, we'll say hello world, and we actually want to post that to Francis. We'll click post. Now if we go to content, now you can see we have this JSON string and it says @Francis world because that's the content of the post. So what we want to do with extras now on the notify page is we want to say that this person mentions you in a post, and what we could do now is display that post. So what we'll do is we'll echo out some pre-tags, and in here we'll print the end variable. We'll refresh and there we can see the variable, and this last one has an extra field. So what we'll do is echo n, and when we echo n we want to get the extra field, so we'll say extra. We refresh and there we can see there's the extra field, and what we want to do is JSON decode it. So we'll say JSON decode n extra, and we want to print that because that will return an array. So there is our text, but the reason it didn't work is because you can see this isn't a proper string. So what we want to do is go back to our posting page and we want to make sure post body is a string. Here we want to also use HTML entities to make sure that if there's any double quotes in the post, they get escaped so that they don't mess with the JSON. So we'll try this again. We click post, we go back to notify, and there we can see there's our JSON string and there's valid JSON this time. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to print our JSON decode. So there we can see there's our decoded JSON. So we can copy this variable, we can say extra equals our decoded string, and then we can say the sender mentions you in a post, and then we can show them the post. For example, we could say extra post body, and now you can see there's the post, and Here we're getting errors because they don't have any extra variable. So what we could do is actually up here, if n extra equals nothing, then we'll print something out, otherwise we'll print this out. So what we could do is just have two versions and then print this one out up here. Get rid of the variable extra. This one would only run if the notification was something different. So we could say something like, you got a notification. In reality, they should never actually see this, because the only reason we would ever see this code is because when we set it up, we didn't actually include an extra. But every time someone sends a post, the post body will be stored in extra no matter what. So the user should never actually see this, but we're just going to put it in to make sure we don't get any errors. And if we refresh, there it just says you have a notification. And we're getting this error just because on this one, our JSON was invalid. So I'm just going to change it to make it valid JSON. And there we can see it. Everything worked. So that's it for this video. Don't forget to like, comment, favorite, and subscribe. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Reddit. And I'll see you next time.